My lords, today I bring you a report regarding some hive scum who found themselves on the wrong side of the warp. This report was authored by Alex Hammond. 0700 hours. And there will be fire from the heavens, and righteous bolt guns will quicken and purge even the deepest crevices of the underhive. All that is foul and pestilent will be washed away, but this is the teaching of House Khador, of the redemption. First, there was a sound, like a burst of fire that stirred the dim mutterings of my mind to action. Somewhere in the back of my head, a woman, from my dream, beautiful body, scarless and soft, still danced in the upper hive. Look upon this scum. The deepest slag pits could not outmatch his sins in their filth and perversion. Thoughts swirled. My dancing girl disappeared. See, though he wakes from his slumber, he does not release the bottle from his hand. The voice was closer than I remembered in my sleep, louder too. Enraged, I opened my eyes. Legs, lots of legs, some bound in cloth, others wearing heavy boots, stretched out before me. I followed them upwards and discovered the hard, ash-worn faces of a crowd of settlers. Their attention filtered between my recumbent form and someone behind me. A preacher? I began to stand, bow-legged, still recovering from a bottle of wild snake. On your feet and face the prophet of universal destruction. A solid boot in my back sent me floundering forward into the reeking mud. The crowd cheered. I rolled over onto my back, elbows deep in the sludge. Through mud-splattered eyes I made out the robed preacher. Thick, burgundy cloth ran in torn strips, from ground to neck. A leather mask covered all but a pair of rabid eyes, and a mouth spitting blood. A House of Redemption preacher had come to town. Vermin man, stand and answer to the House of Khador, the true prophets of the flames of salvation. Through the black leather face mask, one eye caught my attention. Bloodshot streams ran their course to a pupil as dark as pitch. Another boot struck me full in the face. Look, my voice cracked, from behind the haze of last night's drinking. I'll be able to stand if you stop practicing rat ball with my face, old man. Stunned silence behind me. The preacher staggered and began to shake violently on the spot. Theatrical performance or the jiggling of a religious psychopath, I was not going to hang around to find out. Slowly I stood. The Khador preacher stopped moving. The crowd clustered well back. Talk back, will you, rat man? Mock those that herald cleansing flame? A white tongue slid in and out of the priest's mouth. Seek ye retribution? Look, I'm happy to go to sleep in some other part of town. The preacher pointed his flamer in my direction. The crowd scrambled wide. This town is in no need of rat-skin scum. Go converse with your blasphemous hive spirits. That's half rat-skin, slimehole. I rushed for the crowd, hoping the distance and their bodies could afford me the protection from the flames. I threw myself into a pile of scrap. No wash of flame. I turned to look over my shoulder. The zealot stood there. The antiquated weapon still levelled in my direction had failed to discharge its round. An empty fuel canister came to rest in the mud beside me. The old man began to reach for a reload amongst his tattered robes. A lead pipe, thick bolt rusted to one end, felt good in my hand. I wrenched it from the mess of ancient metal around me and whirled it around my head. The priest, rustling about his drapery, produced another canister. I screamed in terrified panic. The redemptionist thrust his hands together, loading the weapon. A warm trickle of liquid down my leg. My only source of comfort, I swung towards the preacher and reconsidered my options. This man had friends. Too late. The pipe sunk deep into the leather mask. Somewhere in his head, something cracked. A muddy thud later, and the preacher lay on the ground. I grabbed his flamer and spun to face the rabble. Only a sliver of snowfall to effluent ash from somewhere overhead. There was not a settler in sight. The silver ashfall began to thicken. Somewhere in the hive city, miles above me, ancient machines were grinding over, pulling on pistons, driving cogs, and starting the 1,000-year-old machines of Hive Primus. 0800. The ashfall had worsened. I watched from inside Craig's saloon as desperate underhivers ran for cover, trying to keep their particle intake to a minimum. Push your annual quota too high, and you'll reduce your lifespan by as many rads as you had hailed. Inside the bar, the smoke hung momentarily before air filters dragged it into the bowels of downtown evaporation tanks. I'd used the old zealot's money to purchase a fresh bottle of wild snake and a few pills from a fixer. I began to think things over. Life was getting bad for settlement-dwelling ratskins. So bad. It appeared that even half-castes like myself were now the targets for retribution. I should move up Hive, work in an Orlock factory till I had enough creds to buy some new flesh and a day on a serum drip. I had no lead of a lung pump. The respirators I'd scavenged from when I was young had kept me free from noxious air. Once I had a wet overhaul, I'd have a better chance of getting employed by one of the Spire noble families. Suddenly, Crag's extraction fan above the bar spluttered and gave a grinding death rattle and stopped. Almost immediately, all eyes turned to me. Crag, a big man, lots of teeth, stretched out his hand towards me. His two real fingers held out a stack of Guilder credits. Sarak, we'd all appreciate it if you go in there and fish out whatever's got caught in the fan. I quit cleaning ducks, I replied. Carag flipped out a couple of extra coins. You try wrestling a Kachan face-eater one day, and then see if you're keen on going back into an air duct. There's another bottle of wild snake on me, if you'll do it. 0850 hours. Somewhere in the duct something was half alive. Its squeals echoed down through the steel lung that fed air into the bar below me. The humid conditions of the air ducts of the Underhive were home to creatures that could just not bear to live anywhere else. Albino millosaurs, phosphorescent lashworms, and all manner of tropical spores and bugs. A few tiny carapaces cracked beneath my hands as I inched further towards the bar's extraction fan. The squealing stopped. It had heard me. I struggled forward with a flashlight and shone it onto the mechanism. Like a leathery bolt, something rushed towards me, needle teeth snapping at my face. I slipped forwards. The flashlight spun out of my hand, sending spiraling patterns about the air vent. It came to rest dead on the creature. 4 eyes perched in a row across its brow stared into mine, unblinking. A multitude of legs, wing flaps strung between them, dipped. The thing sprung again. Its teeth were just inches from my face, but no further. Looking over the thing's back, I followed its tail, like a large welt of flesh to the extraction fan. It was caught. Carag, I called down into the mumbling bar through the vent. Quiet. Carag poked at the air duct from below with a broom. Is that you, Sarak? Carag, notch up your fan a few dots. You sure about that? Carag, this thing's going to eat my nose if you take any longer. The fan ground a full revolution, pulling the creature 8 inches towards the rough blades. Again, I called. The creature squealed and lost its footing, scrambling on the metal. The fan, now free, whirled up to full speed, sucking the thing backwards into its blades. It ground the thing up like a paste, spitting its entrails, many legs, and bright yellow ichor into the vents all over me and down into the bar. It's dead, Carag's voice observed astutely from below. 1000 hours. A fresh bottle of wild snake in my hand, a few offcuts of giant rat skin tucked around my feet. I settled down into an alleyway behind a tanner's shop. I opened the stopper on the bottle and let its pungent odour hit me full in the face. I had done well. The distiller had let part of the brewed snake slip into this bottle. It looked like a rib. I took a swig and swallowed one of the pills I'd acquired earlier. Gunfire rattled out a staccato beat. The gangers were waking. Leaning back, I looked skyward. The 1,000 walkways of the Underhive disappeared up into the darkness like 1,000 steel-black arteries, feeding the lifeblood to the Hive City's dark heart. I could make out Underhivers moving along the lower levels. Little people moving. Little people with more scar tissue than sense. This place swarmed with the very worst of humanity. Here I was, knee-high and effluent, with only a bottle of wild snake, a dust respirator, a dead man's weapon, and a rad counter to my name. I had to move up Hive. I'd almost lost my life twice today, and I wasn't going to settle for a third. In the Hive Spire they don't have bugs. No bugs, no wounds either. The tiny lights of the Hive City above me looked like a galaxy of stars, a glimpse of greater things. A gentle breeze washed in over my face, and I knew I was in. The soft sound of music, light, as though touched by the fingers of the air, a small coloured bird in a cage, a clear night sky, free from poisonous cloud cover, star freighters, bright blue thrusters, propelling them deep space. The woman, injury-free, white skin dancing, turning around and around, calling my name, a soft, melodious voice. No rattle of gunfire, just the soft wind, the dancer, and the smell of real plants. 1200 hours. I woke for the second time that day, with the visions of the high spire still playing through my mind. I walked out of the alleyway into the city streets, holding the fur offcuts tight around my shoulders. For the first time in years, I smiled at a woman and child as they passed me by. Fresh rats hung off their belts. I knew where to go, and how to do it. I was going up Hive. 1230 hours. When you've got little that you own and are still getting over the euphoric effects of a drug cocktail, everything seems a lot easier. Perhaps, if I had been straight, I would have gone about my Exodius a little differently. Perhaps I wouldn't have gone to the front gate. You Ratman Sarak, Masked Man, 3 others with him. Huh? I stared through the 2 ancient pillars that denoted downtown's front gate. It was a mere 5 meters away. The drugs in my system tripled that distance. Ratman Sarak, your name, half-breed. The man was dressed in robes. A pair of ape-like lips jutted out of a leather mask. Yeah? Someone paid a lot of money so that they could have a problem with you instead of us. One of the other men, cradling an auto pistol in his hands, spoke tight-lipped through a similar mask. Enough of this. The big man was giving the orders. Pack him up, and let's make that delivery. I couldn't remember where I tucked my flamer. One of the men struck me with a syringe filled with black liquid. My body sagged, and then I'd realised what I'd done. 1400 hours. Hello, my sweet. The dancing woman? I'd be able to open my eyes if I could stop my head from rotating. There were others in the room. I caught hold of my head and snapped my eyes open. Oh. A bloated neck led in rolls of flesh up to the back of a shaven head. He's awake. The figure turned around to face me. A pair of bespectacled eyes stared down upon me from within a wealth of flesh. A large gilder badge predominated a costume of rich cloth and precious metal. Greetings, Mr. Grunter, I slurred. Oh, Sarak, there's no need for formalities. No, debts as steep as yours are going to make us business partners. Call me Otto. Otto Grunter, the black-tongued gilder, prince of the Underhive. First time we'd met, although I knew his agents well. A gilder with as many kills to his name as he had guild bonds. Okay, Otto. I attempted to reach out a hand but found it tightly constrained by an iron brace. Silly boy. You're in no state to move. There's enough spore venom in your blood to have you flapping about like a fish on the floor if we don't keep you restrained. His pitch-black tongue licked his lips. Which spore? Otto turned back over his shoulder. Lugtech, what colour was it? Yellow, came the reply. A metallic voice in the shadows, the only other thing in the big empty warehouse. Now, Sarak, I have the antidote to this poison, if you just pay up your debts. Nothing. That used respirator, rad counter, and that hand flamer you so cleverly hid in your belt make up at least, say 30 credits? Now if you could make up the other 60. I don't have any money. Oh, well, this is no good. Discovered any archaeotech recently? The Guilder's pudgy fingers danced at the mention of ancient technology. No. Some green hivers I could extort? No. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to sell your carcass to a body bank. Wait, I spoke up. I could offer you my services. Perhaps I didn't sound desperate enough. I'm afraid you're a little underskilled. You're the town drunk and a chemhead to boot. You're worth a mere 10 credits to a generous body harvester. Seriously, I can take care of infestations. Infestations? Pests. Pests. Alright, Sarak, you've got yourself a job. You take care of an infestation and we'll wipe the slate clean. I might even see about that dancing girl. What? Otto's nasty little mouth broke into a smile. You dare touch my mind with an unsanctioned psyker, and I don't deal with psychers, Sarak. You spilled your guts to us when you were under. Once metaphorically, and the second time, well, I'm not laughing, fat man, I slurred. You're in no position to laugh, you mincing turd. Otto's spittle sprayed my face. Ludtech, give him the antidote and get his sorry behind rigged up to infiltrate the scavies. What? Your chosen vocation is pest extermination. Well, I'm up to my armpits in mutant scum from the bottom of the hive, and they're costing me profit. Otto spat out the words, slapping the guild badger on his chest. What did you think I'd do? Send you into my warehouses with a stick and a rat quota? Well, yeah. Ah! Otto wobbled as he broke out into a high shriek. Let's get this show on the road. The warehouse suddenly came to life. Lights cast the shadows aside and the ground shook and began a steady rumble. Where are we going? I stumbled over the words, my fear obvious. We're taking this rig far deeper into the hive, Otto smiled. 1,500 hours. What Mr. Grunter wants is simple, and when Mr. Grunter wants something done, for a lot of money, we're going to do it, right? A strap was pulled tighter across my chest. Look, Ludtech, the man comprising more machine parts than real flesh, stared across me. You don't want to be leading an assault against those deprived cannibals, just like I don't want to be sneaking into their hideout and trying to poison them. Not all of them, just the leader. Without him, they're toasted rat. That's a moot point. I'll be dead before I get close to any of them. Not with this, you won't. Ludtech fastened another strap across my chest and placed an electrode on my head. What's this? A hollow suit. Mr. Grunter was planning on selling them to the Tellurian rebels. Ludgut's metal fingers pressed another electrode roughly into my head, but an Imperial patrol clamped down on his spaceport and the stock ain't moved since. What does it do? Rerouted to make you look more like a scavvy. Here, Ludtech flashed a piece of mirror glass in my face. Wah. Welts and a third eye adorned my head. Come on, Ludtech. You know I would look more realistic with sludge meal smeared on my face. It's still configuring to your dimensions. You really want to go into battle? Come on, we could ditch this caravan and head up Hive together. Sorry, little man. When exactly did you become a friend of mine? See these? Ludtech flashed out a series of pictures. Ah, frag. Skin like sludge rats. These are the face of gangers. Mr. Gunter had me right out of town. These hollows are all that's left. Right now, they're eel food. I'm not in the business of being pleasant. I'm a hired gun, little man. Now get ready to go. I didn't speak to Ludtech again. Otto, seated behind a control panel in his head caravan, issued orders to a band of mercenaries and hired scum. A posse had pulled together from the toughest bars across the Underhive. I pondered my predicament. In my sweat-drenched palms I held 5 melting capsules. Poison, Ludtech had said. But I had my own suspicions. Through the shimmering light of the holosuit, I pulled on the fuel canister Otto had reimbursed me as part of the hand flamer. It was fresh, brand new. Otto finished his commands. Now Sarak, we're going to equip you with that flamer to give you a little bit of confidence. Pep you up some. Nothing is going to go wrong. We've been planning this for weeks, so all you have to do is mosey on up to them with that carcass and its juicy piece of bait in your hands. Pop those pills in their leader's food and come home to mummy. 2100 hours. The grinding of machines above had always been a comfort to me, but down here at the hive bottom I couldn't hear them, only the soft squelch of the mould carpet beneath me. Huge pillars bored into the ground, like the trunks of a steel forest. Fluorescent bugs scuttled up and down them, like blood in the veins of an ancient giant. In the darkness, I regarded the dead ganger I dragged all this way. His eyes were bloodied, like a pockmark of jagged flesh torn through his jaw. His death had been slow. Into his belt was tucked a map and a guilder schedule. Pretty good ones. Even I couldn't tell they were fakes. I hoped the smell of blood hadn't attracted the nasty things from their recess. Scav, you are, a voice in the darkness, a stunted figure. I replied, trying to give as little indication of my Upphive origin. Biggie on, August kin? I didn't understand a word. I stuck to what worked. Sludge meal and man flesh to eat. Oh, splendid, I muttered under my breath. The dark figure led on, stumbling towards a dim glow in the distance. We approached the scabby stronghold. 20 figures gathered about a large fire in the middle of a shantytown. I nearly retched when I saw the faces of these depraved souls. The garish light the fire threw up highlighted their pustulant limbs, encrusted skulls and infested wounds. Upon the fire was a giant, spent ammunition shell that was being used as a cooking pot. A stray limb fell out as a bloated scabby stirred. Not even the visions of my worst drug-induced stupor with skinless apes and pit-eyed marionettes compared to this spectacle. More for pot? A plastic-wrapped man, jagged smile and pointed teeth, stepped out of the mass of cannibals. "You bring good eatin', I muttered, sticking with the routine. "Me Hogus, I lead." The half-man reached out a wrapped hand. I passed him the body. "You kill him?" His eyes shifted. "Uh-huh." Looked like Gilda. Hogus looked down. His smile dropped. For a second, the hollow suit shimmered. "What?" The scabby leader reached towards the body and removed its torn flap jacket. He got words. The scabies left the pot. They huddled close. Small, luminous worms digging about their flesh. I closed my eyes. "Words tell of more Gilderkin, travel through old walls. Got good stuff," Hogus translated. "Good stuff," the scabies cheered, moaned and shrieked in near unison like a demonic chorus. "Bring new scav down front. Let him eat some." Hogus flapped a claw at me. I would have been happier if I had been buried alive in a mass grave. These fiends gorged themselves for an hour on the half-decayed carcasses of former companions, and the fresh kill I had delivered to them. The leader sipped periodically from a private keg of wild snake by his side. His plastic squeaked and rustled as he stood to fetch another bowl of flesh gruel from the pot. I stumbled towards it through the crowd of scavies, half-rotten hands slapping me on the back as I moved. I reached for the keg, its neck in my grasp. All sound and movement stopped. All eyes were on me. Hogus spun about. His eyes met mine. Thin wisps of psycho-electricity played across his fingers. I had to think quick. I unplugged the lid of the keg and, dropping to one knee, offered it to him. "Hail, Hogus, Witchman King." I was fast running short of ideas. "Hail," chorused the scavies. Hogus grinned, a jagged toothed smile at his monstrous comrades. In the moment his head turned, I crushed Otto's pills through the gaps in my clenched hand. "Hail, Hogus," Hogus chuckled, and reached towards the keg of wild snake. A shot rang out. The scavies fell to the ground, drawing out ancient blades and muskets. Hogus fell to the ground, clutching at his chest. A large, scaled scavy stood up, smoking pistol in his hands. "No hail Hogus, hail Blotter, hail all scavs." Oh great. I was in the middle of a scavy revolution, a cannibal collective. Hogus gurgled, shimmering blue light dancing around his chest wound. "Blotter," Hogus cried, and then erupted in a rush of blue flame and sparks. The cannibal pot spilled its gore into the sludge. I slipped on a rotten intestine. "Blotter, good scav, let other scavs drink." Blotter, 3 arms and 1 eye, snatched the wild snake from my hands and took a deep swig. I scuttled back from him, eyes roaming the scavy crowd for an escape route. Blotter grinned across both of his mouths. "Good drink." His eyes caught mine. "You scav, drink up. All scavs drink." I shook my head. Blotter wasn't showing any signs of being poisoned yet. Perhaps it took time to wear in. "Drink," Blotter waved his gun at me. The other scavies fell silent. I fingered the trigger of my hand flamer tucked inside my shirt. An Arkin spray would hit most of them. What was I saying? I'd never shot a gun, let alone a highly volatile antique. "Drink," Blotter cocked and thrust his pistol at my head. They must have been getting suspicious. I reached forward, taking as long as I could to reach the bottle. Still no signs of poison from Blotter. Slowly, I grasped its neck and held it to my lips. A small clock was ticking down the time in my head. I tried to move its hands. I let only the smallest amount of wild snake touch my lips and trickle down my dry throat. More! Blotter grabbed my hand and upended more of the drink into my mouth. I splattered backwards onto the ground to a burst of laughter. I lay there for a while the scavies drank themselves silly on the wild snake. I was poisoned, so I tried forcing my fingers into the back of my throat, but nothing happened. "New scav, come slay Gilderkin." It was Blotter. Looked like Hogus's old plan still stood. I staggered to my feet. Perhaps Otto had an antidote. All I had to do was circumvent the hollow suit and get back up to his caravan. Half a chance was better than no chance at all. The scavies armed themselves with stolen weapons and rust-encrusted blades. As they busied themselves, I struggled with Hogus's body, trying to find some evidence of his death. In the end, I cut a ring from his finger. New Scav, Blotter and his mutant comrades were ready. 0 hours. Glad to be running. Good to be running. Perhaps we'll make up time. But what if there's no antidote? No means of stopping the poison that runs through me? I'm not feeling ill, but it could be one of Otto's nastier concoctions. Something seeping into my system and eating away at me from the inside. Otto must have planned for the poison to kick in when the scabies arrived in his trap. Why didn't he tell me about it? How could he know that they'd come straight away? What if... We arrive, an old domed town. The metal braces that held its roof still remain like an old iron skeleton. The perfect place for a trap. A Gilder caravan sits in the centre of the dome. The scabies cheer as they see it below. Guns blazing, they rush towards it. I follow, keeping my distance, trying to catch sight of Otto. Nothing. And then it starts. Before the scabies even reach the caravan, one falls to the ground. It clutches its head and thrashes about on the ash floor. Dust kicks up at its feet, and thin wisps of light crackle around its head. One last kick and it lies still, electricity tracing along its lifeless body. Blotter begins to scream, firing the shots wildly into the air. One gets lucky and hits one of Otto's mercenaries, hidden in the iron braces. A volley of gunfire, heavy weapons and red-hot lasers rain down upon the scabies. A few shots are good, but the mutants seem to have uncanny speed. Blotter still screams, and then begins to slowly rise up from the ground. A word? Spiraling upwards, his shotgun buckles as force beyond his control racks his body. Other scabies, hidden amidst the old machines and the broken concrete slabs, begin to cast fire from their fingers, burning white hot, and float. Gunter, I yell over the sound of screaming scabies and the fire. A red dot traces its way across the ground towards me. I struggle with the electrode stuck in my head and start running. Bullets pepper the ground behind me, throwing up ash and ricochet from the scrap metal. I duck into an old doorway and slump to the ground. A scavy's hiding here too. It draws out an old musket. I wave my flamer at it. Scav, it moans. Others think in my head. What? Big man laughing. Metal man shoot metal from above. Scavs think of dead. All in my head. Suddenly I work it out. Spook. The street name for what wannabe psychers hit up on in order to get some psychic action. It was banned throughout the Underhive, but some still couldn't refuse the chance of wielding a bit of nether force. Otto must have wanted to fry the scavy boss's mind, make him overload on psychic juices or something. But now, it was messing with everyone's head. You think man thoughts. You're not Scav. You're friend of Laughing Man. The scavy levelled its musket at me. I let my finger run the flamer's trigger as far as it would go. The flamer began spewing blazing napalm across the scavy and throughout the burnt out room we were in. I leapt from the flames. A bullet grazed my head from above. The sniper must have been waiting. I start running again, panting and desperate. One of my legs catches the light from a lick of flame that comes rushing down from above. The scene outside is rife with destruction and carnage. Scavy turned on scavy, hallucinating wildly as the mercenaries gradually tighten their stranglehold. Bullets fall in waves about the dome. I drop to the ground and beat at the flames on my legs. I rip the electrodes from my head and hit the holosuit's release. Blood trickles across my eyes. Grunter, you slime hole, I scream. Don't worry, he'll get his, a voice in my head. I groan, flat on my back, the ancient dome above me. My head is spinning. Something is in my head. A hive spirit? Not exactly, it says in reply. What are you doing in my head? You eat those pills? What? Upphive, dreams of Upphive. Think, focus. I pull myself across the ground. Scavies lie twisted and contorted in the shapes of painful death. Many are on fire. You're the last one alive. How do you know? Voices in the distance, outside my head. Trust me, I was there when each of them died. Grotto Grunter, the black-tongued Gilder prince, strolls about the corpses, surrounded by men, marking each dead scavy off on a clipboard. We've done well, Lugtech, Otto addresses the mechanoid man beside him. Quite well. Gunter, I call out. He can't hear you. It's true, he doesn't react. Gunter, I scream so loud I think my lungs will burst. I won't let him hear you. Not until we've had our chat, the voice in my head says. Who are you? Sharp pain shoots throughout my body. Get out of my head. I roll over, face first in the ash. She dances pretty well. What? The ash tastes like burnt bone. The girl in your head. Leave her alone, silly boy. The spire looks nothing like this. No. Scrap the coloured birds and the warm breezes. They're all hooked up on life support systems up there. The air's too thin to breathe. The voice is jagged with cynicism. Liar. How do you know? The voice speaks again. Don't cry. Damn you. That's better. Use those emotions up. I feel my body being lifted. Now, let's get us moving, huh? I stand to my feet, legs propelled by forces other than my own. The men move with suspicion, but Otto is undeterred. Well done, Sarak. Otto approaches. Why'd you use spook? My voice rings loud like a roll of thunder. Oh no, I don't deal in illegal substances. A pain in my chest. That's your payment done. The obese Gilder slides his pistol back into its holster. Did that hurt? It had to hurt. You're dead, I stagger forwards, thrusting the flamer at Otto. What? Otto turns, my sudden intentions making the fat man dance on his feet. Kill him. A hail of gunfire jousts with the wave of flame that I launch from the weapon in my hand. I'm struck all over, hot metal boring into my flesh. The bullets feel warm inside of my cold body, but I don't feel pain. I burst the light, the flamer dropping at my feet. Otto's men roll and writhe on the ground, slapping at the flames. The few remaining mercenaries rush at me, control bursts breaking into wild fire as I fail to fall to the ground in a bloodied heap. What are you doing to me? I scream as I'm flung about like a puppet on a string. You're possessed from the warp, boyo. It's a lesson in messing with psychic drugs. Claws I never knew I had begin to cut the fighting men to ribbons. Only Lugtuk fights on. Blood and oil streams from his body as his machine limbs clog with his own life fluid. All too soon he falls to a burning heap on the ground. This is it, I think. I'm going to die, but I have one last trick to play. What trick? Never you mind, I say aloud. I take a few deep breaths and I rush Otto. He screeches and tries to run, but I don't let him. Take my credit badge, Sarak. I can fix it. I have friends on the spire. I can get you work there. Otto is weeping like a child. No, I reply calmly. I begin to feel pain. No, Otto. We're both going to die. The hurt runs in waves across my body. What are you doing to me? The voice is fading. I have a present for you, Otto. I release hold of all that I care for. Let my emotions slip into nothing. Slumping forward, I fall on top of Otto, crushing his body to the ground. Otto shrieks. Already a death spasm grips my body. You're dying, the voice says. I thrust a bloodied arm down the Gilder's throat and let go of the dancing girl. My eyes are glazing over. Consciousness slips away with the last few drops of my blood. A final image burns into my retina. The screaming Gilder, possessed to die and burn for eternity.